Hi guys, welcome to Landscape Ecology. This is my intro video, which will be a little bit longer than yours. I've got the course assignment set up so that you guys can do your own intro video through Flipgrid and just share a little bit about yourself, how you found yourself in this field, and of course take some time to reply to your classmates, and hopefully we'll start with a little bit of a learning community, getting to know each other this way. So like many of you guys, I was a child raised in the outdoors. I grew up on a family farm in Florence County, South Carolina. 3 brothers, rough and tumble childhood outdoors. This is a picture of me with one of my younger brothers circa 1984 with a great horned owl on my shoulder. I went to Davidson College for undergrad and studied biology. I found myself in a classroom mostly with other folks that were pre-med. I had the opportunity to do a summer program in Barbados studying the invasive African green monkeys there, and that really set me on a path with a love for field research and natural communities. After I graduated from college, I spent a couple of years doing field tech jobs. This is a picture of me, my first job out of college in Australia, also working for the School for Field Studies, mostly with American students that had come to learn how to do field research. I was the intern in charge of students doing avian ecology research, and it was a tropical reforestation program in Queensland. I got my first job with a resource agency, around 1997. This is me working for the South Carolina Department of Natural Resources on a pair of homemade float shoes made out of foam and duct tape and a little bit of plywood, studying wading bird colonies throughout coastal South Carolina. And this was back when resource agencies had funding for that kind of inventory work, something we see less of today. I took another temporary job with the USGS back when they had a biological resource division studying endangered birds in Hawaii. I was on the island of Maui, and we would get helicoptered up to our study sites along the rim of the Haleakala crater, and this was a job that was mostly behavioral studies, but that was helping to inform strategies to protect some of these very imperiled bird species in Hawaii. After a couple of years in the field, I did a master's program with the Warnell School of Forest Resources at UGA, and I actually studied the brown-headed cowbird in coastal South Carolina for that master's work. Went straight into a PhD program at Clemson, working with Dr. Drew Lanham and studying avian ecology in the Southern Alps. We looked at the intersection of resource availability, seasonality, and songbird communities in that landscape. I graduated from Clemson in 2003 and really went straight into a series of teaching jobs. Taught at Furman and the Citadel and the College of Charleston over the span of about a decade, while also serving as the Director of Research for the Avian Conservation Center in Charleston. This is me teaching a bird dissection lab at the Citadel ornithology class. I found my way into the very applied realm of land conservation when I took a job with the Nature Conservancy around 2007, and actually was a landscape project director for the Nature Conservancy. So it's interesting that the Nature Conservancy at that time, and really in some cases still today, oriented their work around this concept of conservation landscapes and working at the landscape scale to identify threats and strategies for conservation, to identify conservation targets and research needs. And so this job really was an interesting applied job at the intersection of conservation and science, where I get to help identify research needs while I was also teaching at the College of Charleston and apply some of those on the ground for more on-the-ground conservation outcomes to protect natural communities. So one species I've worked with in particular, and a species that has been a focus for conservation efforts in this north coast landscape of South Carolina where I've worked, is the swallowtail kite in this picture. And these pictures are from a story that TNC Magazine did on kite conservation. And so I wanted to segue that just into kind of this realm where I have continued to work in land conservation, that a lot of the principles that we'll talk about in this course of landscape ecology inform the day-to-day work in conservation. And so one of the things that you all will be doing is to identify a land conservation or a landscape scale conservation initiative and apply some of the principles and theories of landscape ecology that we'll talk about in the class in presenting how these get applied on the ground. For the purposes of the class, I'd like to circle back probably repeatedly in our lectures to a particular landscape where I've done a lot of work over the years, which is this Black River North Coast landscape in South Carolina. And just because I've got great resources at hand to use this as a case study and an example, it's something that you might want to familiarize yourself with a little bit. So what we see here is roughly a 2-county area in along the north coast of South Carolina, north of Charleston, a little bit south and west of Myrtle Beach. And this is roughly I think a 60-mile stretch of river and a 200,000 acre focus area where we've got a lot of conservation efforts underway and a pretty good understanding of some of the species and habitats, some of the dynamics with salinity intrusion and sea level rise that help to inform the work here. So with that, we'll wrap up this intro and really look forward to hearing from you guys.